Can you just start off by explaining what caused this many people to come out and take to the streets in Bucharest?
Well, there's a bit of a moving target right now because the whole thing started about 2 weeks ago when the government tried to pass in emergency procedure. Actually, they did pass 2 pieces of legislation as executive ordinances of the government. And I'm going to, to cut the details short, but for the Ukrainian public to understand, it's about passing a collective pardon to many people who were supposed to be freed from jails. And the second would amend the criminal code and eliminate some investigative instruments which are very effective in these years by the DNA.
What are the issues at this moment? Why there are still so many people, if they would like, won't have this decree any longer, as what we understand?
You are right. The government yelled it about a week ago, and one of the emergency ordinances was transformed into a law and put it into the parliament, the pardons. And today they repealed the other emergency ordinance. So basically, the technical problem was solved, but it was too little too late. And now we have a problem of credibility of this government, which I told you they won just less than 2 months ago, and they have almost 60% in the parliament, but the people won't listen to them anymore. Actually, they lied so much in these 2 weeks about the reasons why they do this. They pretended that the jails are overcrowded. Some are, actually, but they lied so much, and actually everybody could notice that the act was going to benefit the leader of the Socialist Party. He has a conviction with suspension, and actually they pardoned people with a conviction with suspension. Now, people with suspensions are not in jail, actually. So if you pardon them, you don't free any jail. It will be the same overcrowding. So it was so obvious that it was done for politicians. And people don't trust this government anymore. This is why I said it's a moving target. Right now, there's probably the biggest protest in Bucharest since the fall of communism in 1990, in 89. There are 300,000 people out in Victoria Square in front of the government building. And of course, they are demanding the resignation of the government, or at least the Minister of Justice, who actually provoked this mess.
Sorin, so 2 questions then. What other demands do they have if those are not met? And if those are not met, what could happen?
Well, it's hard to say because, as I said, this is something very new. Until yesterday, the government was very determined to go on their path, and they said, no, we will never repeal the law. So they yelled it just last evening, and today, Sunday, they had an emergency cabinet meeting, and indeed they repealed the ordinance. You repeal an ordinance by passing another ordinance. Apparently, that one, the second, is poorly written. And if it falls in the parliament later on, then the first ordinance with a problem will be reinstated. So they made such a mess because they are also very poor technicians in terms of legal process. And when they see this, people don't trust them anymore. So now people need some heads. They need resignations. At this point, nobody is disputing the right of the Socialist Party to have a government. Because they won, as I said, in December they won, and now they have 60% in the parliament, and that's democracy. We have to put up with this. But people need new figures. We need new ministers who are more credible personally, because these ones just made a shame of themselves.
So, Sorin, following all kind of protests, there is some kind of dynamic of the protest when, the government in such situation is sometimes a few steps behind. So they fulfill one demand, but then they already spoil the whole story, so people want something more. So what are the chances that the people in the streets of Bucharest, that the civil society would be satisfied, and that there are another people who could possibly fill the cabinet, fill the government, and that it wouldn't lead to the, major change of the government, or I don't know, another elections or things like that? Because it's really the a really uncomparable protest to what we've seen during the last decades.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there is a frustration in society, and people are actually humiliated basically because they were lied at for 2 weeks. I mean, all these arguments, they were actually provided fake news by the Prime Minister and by the Minister of Justice. And people would, at least people in the big cities, but these are a lot, you know, they will not put up with this. You are right. I mean, this is a moving target, and the government was one step behind all the time. They did too little and too late, including today. If they had done 2 weeks ago what they did today, it would have been fine. 2 weeks ago, people would have listened to technical arguments about laws. Today, not anymore. Today, they need to resign. The socialists are a big party. They are the biggest party in Romania, actually, and there are already defections in the party. So obviously there is a group of hardliners who want to push forward because they benefit, because they are investigated, actually, or they have a criminal record and they want everything to be cancelled. And we can see that there are people who are more, who want to have a future in politics, even in European politics, and they don't want to go on like this. So there can be any time an alternative, cabinet of ministers. There is tension now within the Socialist Party because they know they have mayors of big cities, and those mayors come into the open and said, we cannot go on like this. We have parents with kids, protesting against us. You can do nothing against them. We have to do something else. We have to bring more credible people. So this is about it, actually. You have 500,000 Romanians right now, during the night, across Romania, protesting for a principle. And the principle is the rule of law. It's not about, salaries or... Actually, it's the other way around. The first thing this government has done after New Year, in the first days of January, when they took office, they raised the pensions, they raised the minimum salary by 16%, and they doubled the allowances for students, actually. So they tried to buy social peace because they had this thing in mind, the pardon and castration of the anti-corruption prosecutors. This was never discussed during the electoral campaign. They had a very good plan with points 1, 2, 3, 4. They discussed it all the time for 6 months during the campaign, and it was all about jobs, tax cuts, and increased social spending. It was never mentioned that they would want a pardon. And then suddenly, after election, it becomes the main topic of the country, So people feel they were taken for fools.